we need to go a little bit longer in depth on this one. So in case you missed it, there's some rumblings of teams around the league interested in JG Pageau. And one of those teams that were listed were the Boston Bruins, who, as we know, their center depth isn't really all that good. So them being interested in Pageau, I don't think is that crazy. But just let's start here. Initial reaction to that and go from there.
I think my initial reaction would be the same as yours, like not really shocked type of thing. Like in terms of our short list of trade targets away from the island, in probably order is Pageau, Lee, and one of Engvall, Mayfield, if not both of them. And even then, like Lee would be third, I guess, on that list because we don't want him to go. But that $7 million could be used elsewhere. I think that's it, right? I'm sure you say the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I'm going to add a Pelech / Pullock option to that. Not necessarily both, but essentially pick one. But that would be another name that I would include on that. But I think the reason why JG Pageau's name comes up so often for the Islanders is, one, there's been rumors of this in years gone by in the past. Like last year, supposedly, the Ottawa rumors had some legitimate legs. Nothing ended up going through, but, sometimes that happens in these situations. Like you have the initial contact and some, conversations and you just don't get there. But the Islanders could also use the cap space, right? Like freeing up $5 million, I think is really important for the Islanders, and just having an empty roster spot to make these changes, which is, we talked about when they re-signed Kyle Palmieri. One of the reasons why I wasn't so thrilled about it was because you're taking away opportunities for change. But maybe this is kind of where we could steer the conversation. I think it's more important for the Islanders to clear the $5 million in cap space than it is in what you actually get in return for JG Pageau.
100%. I totally agree with you that the return for Pageau is the cap space. Obviously, you don't want to be like future considerations for Jean-Gabriel Pageau. You're getting good value, but part of the value is going to be the cap clearing that you're going to get, and how much you even get out of it. Like Lou wanted or was looking at maybe trading Jean-Gabriel Pageau. There were rumors, there were teams interested at the trade deadline last year, and the reason he didn't is he didn't want to hold any money, which is like, who cares? How much are you actually holding? Like 50%? All right, maybe 50% for a full year kind of stinks, but anyways, we're going to relitigate the prices that we were getting last year. Either way, there were workings of a deal for Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Then we can get it now. And the return for us is, again, just the $5 million off the book. So what we get back is just save face. Just enough so it's not embarrassing. The second round pick, I think, is decent enough.
That's what I was going to say. I think it would be a second round pick. And I mentioned that in the video on Saturday, and I got a little pushback, and I was surprised in a way, because my argument was, if you look at the pending UFA market for centers, there's really like two big names out there. John Tavares, who is on the back nine of his career, but is still, he's a big name, so I'm going to put him up there. And Sam Bennett. And I think there's a good chance that both guys remain with the teams that they're on in Toronto and Florida. Now, there's a chance they hit the market, sure. But other than that, there's not a ton of options at center. And I think if you're a team like Boston, who's going to have a lot of money to spend, and I know they were really bad this year, but this, in my opinion, you tell me if you feel differently, I don't think it was complete teardown. We're going to absolutely suck forever. To me, for Boston, it was clearly something's not working. We're not going to be good this year. Let's, strip some pieces off. We'll have money and, readjust in the offseason kind of a thing.
Yeah, they re-upped on their general manager for multiple seasons. Sure, they changed the coach, but the guy who puts the strategy together, as you're saying, for retool to rebuild is staying for a while. So, yeah, to me, it's not we're going to tear this down, because if that was the case, they would do kind of like what we did. And even then, our guy isn't tearing it down. They would get rid of the guy who's in charge of either retooling or tearing it down. So, yeah, to me, what was the pushback you were getting on the second? Was not enough or too much?
Way too much.
Too much.
Yeah. I don't think so. I said a second and like a middle of the road prospect, like not someone who's in like the top 5 of any prospect pool, but maybe someone who's a little older that's playing in the AHL, like a 22 or 23-year-old AHL guy.
Yeah, like our Williams is full, right? You add him to the deal as he was going, add him in, see what we get out of it type of thing.
But I don't think a second is crazy, again, because one, there's only so many, centers actually available. And if you could have the opportunity for Boston to add one, like, is he not a significant upgrade over Casey Middlestad, who's their third line center right now?
Well, in terms of third line center duties, I would say he's an upgrade. I think Casey Middlestad has a higher ceiling, but I think your point is valid in terms of the position that he would play. Jean-Gabriel Pageau is one of the better third line centers in the league, which is why teams want him. This is why they wanted him last year, why they still want him. He is one of the better third line centers in the league. So he doesn't hold a snuff to Sam Bennett or even John Tavares. They're not the same type of player. And you're not bringing him in to do the same thing. You're not expecting 50 to 60 points that those two guys are going to get you. You're expecting 30, maybe 40 points, which he was basically on last year. 14 goals, 28 assists, right? So that's 38. 42 points. Like that was a good season for Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Plus the great defensive metrics, the good offensive play, the good Corsi numbers, or at least decent, and the outstanding face-off percentages. I mean, that's what they're looking for. And so you're going to pay for that. Not a crazy amount, but like a mid to late second round pick. Yeah, man, that checks out to me.
I mean, we've seen first round picks go for depth forward and depth defenseman. Now that usually happens at the trade deadline. So if your argument is the Islanders would get more at the trade deadline than they would in the offseason for Pageau, that's an argument that I'm willing to hear. And I'd say, okay, you know what, that's probably fair. But again, if they're a team that's looking to be competitive, or even if it's not Boston, any team, like supposedly Montreal, sure. Edmonton is a team that I bring up because they were supposedly interested in him. Was it at this deadline or last offseason?
I think it was this one.
Yeah. So like they are looking for, obviously not someone to like put them over the top in another elite scorer, but good playoff player, elite face-off guy, kills penalties, can play on the power play if you need him, but on a better team, he probably isn't. Versatile piece. And again, I'm not saying a first round pick. Like Boston has a 7th overall pick. I'm not expecting the 7th overall pick back for JG Pageau, but I don't know. I don't think a second and an okay prospect is like this crazy idea that's not going to happen.
I don't think so either. Like, of course, who knows if it does or not, but to me, that seems like fair valuation for a guy who can just really keep you on the level when he's on the ice. He may not dominate out there, but you're not going to get scored on consistently when he's out there, which is why Edmonton was interested in him, because we need a guy who's going to be out there when McDavid's catching his breath and we're not dog shit, as we're seeing right now in the playoffs. And so that's why they're interested in, why Boston is, why a bunch of teams. I think Montreal is, Ottawa probably is also circling on him. So absolutely, I would take, I think if it's totally fair, even if it's just a second round pick. They've got two of them, Boston does. The Blues and the Hurricanes. Like that, to me, right there, you have extra value, or to them, well, who cares? And now you add a third line center there. That's great. That's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what they're looking for, as are the other teams here. So I think a second round pick is totally fair for Jean-Gabriel Pageau. For a full year, Jean-Gabriel Pageau.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.